So first part of this is how to identify your most and least ideal customer profile. So back in, I believe it's September of 2017, myself and our head of marketing, Ollie, went to SAS Conference in Dublin. And we got a chance to listen to a discussion from David Apple, who's the VP of Customer Success over at Typeform. If you haven't used Typeform before, it's a really great tool. They have a ton of customers, and David did a really great talk on how they segmented their churn and how they essentially helped reduce their churn. And so one of the couple of key takeaways were, first, not all churn is created equal. So different types of users have different types of churn. And it's usually based on the behavior. So like I said, we're a very usage-based product, which really applied to Typeform's product as well. So the two things that we really learned from David were around this. What Typeform did to actually understand their churn was they segmented their customers based on customer behavior. So they went through and realized that they had 4 different types of customers. One was one-offs, people who would come up, sign up for Typeform, use it once, and then churn. Casuals, people who would use it once in a while, maybe come back every few months, and so they wouldn't just cancel and never come back, but they'd come back occasionally. Reactivators, and then stickies. And this kind of compiled all of their user base, and they were able to, based on usage, kind of segment these customers into these 4 buckets. What they then did was they actually took each of those segments and then measured the retention curve of each one separately. So what they found was really interesting. One-offs, they actually had a negative ROI on those. So they were spending more money to acquire those customers than they were gaining from them. Casuals, they actually had a 3 times ROI on them. Reactivators, 4 times, and then stickies, which were their top customer base, they actually had 7 times return on the investment of acquiring those customers. And so the 2 things that we're going to focus on are the least, kind of the least ideal customer and the most ideal customer. What it enabled them to then uncover from an ideal customer profile, which I think is great for every business and every SaaS company, is to understand who is your ideal customer. And so this is kind of a cool graphic that they came up with. So they segmented their customers based on location, industry, role, company size, and use case. And so this was kind of a cool graphic they came up with. Was their ideal customer was 11 to 250 employees, typically a CEO or founder. SaaS was their best industry. And the use case was using forms for customer feedback. So I highly recommend going through the process of segmenting your customers and understanding which of them have the best ROI, and then try to find trends between these that will then uncover some of these insights. So we actually followed that kind of same process, and we segmented our customers based on different usage behavior. What we came up with was there was 5 different types. The first were non-starters. So people who sign up for Bonjoro, they would send less than 5 videos per week to their customers. The usage was low. Next was beginners. They would send somewhere between 5 and 10 per week. Then we had medium users, which was 10 to 20, heavy users at 20 to 50, and then power users at 50 plus per week. So I'm going to start with the least ideal customers, because that was actually more important for us than understanding our ideal customer. Our initial goal with that process was to find our ideal customer, but we found that we ended up learning more from our most ideal, but we ended up learning more from our least ideal. We found that 80% of our churn was actually coming from users who send less than 5 videos per week. And in fact, majority of that segment was actually people who were sending less than 5 videos total. So they're signing up for Bonjoro, sending a few test videos, entering their credit card, and eventually 80% of them were churning. So essentially they were entering their payment details a bit too early. So that's kind of wraps up the portion of least ideal. And most ideal, like I mentioned, is really important, because you do want to find out who your ideal customers are, so you can then change your messaging to match, customers that fit a certain industry and a certain geographic location with a certain role. For the purposes of the kind of majority of the rest of this presentation, I'll focus on the least ideal.